Grab your Bibles and please be seated. Thank you, Bradley. Good morning, everybody. Hope you all are doing all right. Want to take a moment to welcome our guests. We're glad that you are here. I've gotten to meet several new faces this morning, which is excellent. Always happy when that takes place. I also want to welcome those who are joining us online. We've been struggling a little bit with our technology, trying a few new things, but I think everything is currently working, or at least it was at the start of service, so we'll see how it goes. I once heard a story about a guy who was walking along the seashore, and he was on vacation, right, and he was having to go back to work that next week, and he found a lamp. He picked up the lamp and he rubbed it, and out pops the genie. Genie says, "I'll grant you one wish." He's like, "Not three? No, that's a myth. You get one wish. What's your one wish?" He thought about it for a moment, and he's like, "You know what? Mondays are the worst. Everything always goes wrong on Monday. I don't know what it is, but I wish bad Mondays would just go away." And the genie said, "Okay, as you wish." Poof! Mondays are just gone, right? Because all Mondays are bad. Introduce Bad Tuesdays. I don't know if you've had one of those days where it seems like nothing is going right, but it does seem to be on those Mondays when those things happen. I prefer not to use the language of luck. I think there's providence. I think there's challenges in life, and we have to face those. But I often will make the mistake of utilizing that language, bad luck. Right? I don't know if the disciples had that phraseology or if they tried to or didn't use that word, but what we're going to look at today is a day when they definitely would have felt like it was a bad Monday. They definitely would have been like, "I have bad luck today," and we'll see that in a second. Before we get into that, I want to introduce the series that we're currently in. This is a second lesson in our current series of the Mark study. And the goal of this study is to help us know Jesus. That's the goal of the study, to help you know Jesus. And to that end, we're going to be using Mark, the Gospel of Mark, in order to teach that. But not only do I want to teach you that and remind you of that, but I want to teach you how to teach that to others. So one of the things that we've decided to do is make Bibles free and available. So in the back and over here in both foyers, we have free Bibles. Last week they were all ESVs because that's what they used to print. They've lost the rights to that. So now they're New American Standard. But we also have some ESVs floating around and some NIVs and different things. So if you need a Bible, or you know somebody who needs a Bible, please grab one, take one, make it your own. I am personally of the opinion that whatever I can do to get this in me, I'm going to do. And to that end, I often will bleed all over my pages with different colors and Sharpies and highlights and notes and things. That's me. I know some people are against that. So if you are against that, I have created these bookmarks. So this is known as a chain reference study. What that means is each passage leads to the next passage. So what I would encourage you to do is in the front of your Bible, write the Mark study, and then put Mark 1, chapter 1, put a nice little chain symbol there. See, I got the chains, right? And then at that next passage, you'll put the reference to the next passage you're going to read after you read that one. Seems simple enough. Maybe you write a few notes, a few questions you want to add in there. That's what I would encourage you to do. That way all you need is the Bible. If you want, what I've included in here, and this is last week's study, is each reference as well as some questions that you might find helpful in studying with somebody else and sharing with somebody else. On the front, we have a QR code. What that does is provides a few additional resources. So it links to the YouTube channel playlist that we created through the series of lessons. It links to the original Mark study, both the teacher edition and the regular, and to our website. So that's what that does. So it's like a push button, but on your phone, and then you can access things. So that's what those are. This week's bookmark is this one, and included in that. Hey, baby girl. This week's study is this one, and I've included the first couple references on there as well. All right, let's get into this. The first question that we ask is, who is Jesus? Who is Jesus? We looked at the Sermon on the Mount and the teachings of the Sermon on the Mount, and Jesus called us to live and think about the world in a very different way. And before we follow him, before we begin to apply these things to our life, we really have to ask the question, who is he? Mark claims at the beginning of his book, of the beginning of his gospel, that Jesus is the Son of God. It's a bold statement. Mark is now going to just let the text speak, let the incident speak to us, and we get to decide, is that the case or not? Does the evidence support that? And that's what we're deciding, we're wrestling with. Now, last week, we found the disciples on the waves, on the Sea of Galilee, and a storm was raging, and they were fearing for their lives. And they came to Jesus and they said, "Do you care about us? We're about to drown. We're about to go down, and you're asleep in the boat." Jesus stands in the front of the boat and says, "Peace be still." The sea calms, and they ask that question, who is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? And I think they would have been a little bit anxious to get out of that boat. I think they would have been looking to get out of that boat. And that's exactly where we find ourselves in Mark chapter 5, starting in verse 6. So at the end of our last key reference, there in Mark chapter 4, I think it was like 38, 39 through 41. We're going to jump down now to chapter 5, verse 1. And here in this Bible, if you're using this Bible that we're giving away, it's page 1182. I think that's very different from what it was in the old print ones on the ESV. All right, here's what it says. "And they, the disciples, came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gennesaret. And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him, out of the tombs, a man with an unclean spirit. He lived among the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with chains. For he had often been bound and shackled with chains. But he wrenched the chains apart. He broke the shackles in pieces. No one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day amongst the tombs, on the mountains, he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and fell down before him." Like I said, if I was the disciples and I was in a boat about to die in a storm, and all of a sudden, in the midst of this storm, Jesus stands up and says, "Peace be still," I'm going to be a little nervous still. I want to get out of the boat. I want to kiss dry land. But sadly, the disciples find themselves jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire, because when they finally get to land and they kiss the ground and they look up, what do they see? But they find themselves amidst a dark cemetery. And a madman is running towards them. Do I stay or do I jump back in the boat and push off as hard as I can? What do I do? Not a good day. It's a scary situation. But I think we also have to put ourselves in the shoes, in the position of this man. He's been pushed away from society. He's been pushed away from others. What does he have? Sorrow? Pain? He's shackled again and again. He finds himself pushed away from others. Is this really the life that he wants to live? Man can't help him. The only thing that men can do for him is shackle him up and push him out of society. He is struggling. There are things in his life that oppress him and that keep him bound, keep him away from others. What about you? Do you also find yourself in a similar situation? Not dealing with real demons, but dealing with the demon, as it were, of addiction, of this sin or that sin, things that creep up in your life like pride that push others out, that have others holding you at arm's length, things that keep you bound and you can't seem to break out of them. What can man do about those things? Positive thinking, mindfulness, do better next time. Kind of feels like shackled and left to your own devices. That's where this man was. And as scared as the disciples may have been in that situation, I think this poor man, being tormented day and night in a prison of his own making, maybe due to no fault of his own, finds himself in torment. To what extent he had control of his life, I don't know. He had these demons controlling him, and maybe through a thin veil he saw Jesus and understood what the demons understood about who this was. Maybe he saw for the first time the chance, the hope that could come in his life. And he finds himself not screaming, as many would have thought, at Jesus or making weird gestures, but humbly before him. Man couldn't do much for him. What can Jesus do for him? Let's continue here. In Mark chapter 5, starting here in verse 7. And shouting out with loud voices, he said, what business do we have with each other, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you, do not torment me. For he was saying to him, come out of this man, you unclean spirit. And Jesus asked him, what is your name? And he replied, my name is Legion, for we are many. And he begged him earnestly, don't send us out into the country. Now there was a great herd of pigs feeding nearby on the hillside. And they begged him, saying, send us into the pigs, let us enter into them. So Jesus gave them permission, and the unclean spirit came out and entered the pigs, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and were drowned in the sea. This man had a problem. He had a struggle. He had demons that were tormenting him. He wasn't in control of his own life. We often find ourselves in that same situation, where we're not in control of our own life, where things are tormenting us, where things are challenging us. Man can't help. But here's Jesus trying to intervene in this man's life, trying to give him hope, and eventually casting out these demons into the herd of pigs nearby. We all have problems. We all have things that we struggle with. And it might feel hopeless. You might feel extremely hopeless in your life, that you don't know how to handle these challenges that are there. So what are you going to do? How are you going to handle them? Jesus took these away. And if he could do it for that man, maybe he can do it for you too. If Jesus had the ability to cast out demons, to bring those things that were out of all men's control into submission, if he had the ability to calm the storm that even the sea and the wind obeyed, maybe he has the ability to help me in my life, in the struggles that I find in my own life. But even in that, we have a choice to make. How will we react? How will we respond to that challenge? Pick up our reading here in 14. And the herdsmen fled, and they told in the city and in the country, and the people came out to see what had happened. And they came to Jesus, and they saw the demon-possessed man, the one who had the legion, sitting there, clothed, and in his right frame of mind. And they were afraid. And those who had seen it described to them what had happened to the demon-possessed man and to the pigs. And they began to beg Jesus to depart from their region. He was getting into the boat, and the man who had been possessed by the demon begged Jesus that he might go with him. But Jesus did not permit him and said to him, "Go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy upon you." And he went away, and he began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everybody marveled. This man finds himself for the first time in I don't know how many years, freed from all of his struggles. He's in his right frame of mind. He's able to be clothed. He's able to sit in peace, whole. The world comes to him. They see the transformation in his life, and it scares them. If you come to Jesus and he transforms your life, like this man, that change, that transformation might unnerve people. It might concern them. We used to go party, man. We used to go out and do things. You used to be fun. What happened? What's going on with you? Others reacted to this change in this man by pushing Jesus out. We don't want you here. We don't want your rules. We don't want your power. We don't want your transformation. We want you out of here. You unnerve us. Did you notice that Jesus got in the boat? When he was asked to leave, he left. You don't want me here? Okay, that's fine. But notice how the man responds. I want to go with you. You've changed my life. I can't help but do what you've called me to do. I can't help but follow you. But Jesus asked him to do something incredible. He says, stay here. Go and tell others what God has done for you. Go and tell others what you know. Stay here and proclaim your story. I think so often when we think about evangelism, when we think about sharing our faith, we think we have to be a theologian and know all the answers to all the things. Let me share with you a secret. You don't. All you have to do is share your faith. All you have to defend is your position. To do so with kindness, gentleness, and respect. Now that's the challenge, is not to get argumentative, not to get defensive, but to share your perspective. You're not responsible for what someone else believes. You're responsible for what you believe, and to share what you know. This man was not a theologian. He was a man who was touched by the Master's hand. And he went and shared with others what had happened to him. And when people heard his story, and when they saw his transformed life, they were amazed. Now here's the cool thing, if you don't follow the story all the way to its end. The next time Jesus comes to the Decapolis, all the townspeople meet him with pitchforks and no. They greet Jesus warmly. They invite him in. They accept his message. Why? What changed? Did Jesus change? Did he leave his power behind? Did he decide that he wasn't going to transform lives anymore and upset the status quo? No. What changed was their understanding of what that transformation means. They saw this man's life. They heard his testimony. And the next time Jesus came, they were excited. There's a lesson in there for us for how we should share with others what we know, and how we should let our transformed life be the testimony that no one can deny. That no one can deny. So Jesus tells them to go and share. That's what I call you to do. That's what I called you to do last week, to go and share. Pick up one of these bookmarks. I know we ran out last week. Hopefully I printed enough this week. Pick up one of these. Say, you know what? The preacher talked about some weird things last week. I'd like to sit down and talk to you and see if you can help me make sense of all this. And just share it with them. Say, I was impressed by what the preacher said. I don't know. And share it with them. Sit down and share it. If you don't have any friends that don't also believe in Jesus, well, one, get out more. Two, share it with a friend here at church and just get in the practice of sharing it. There's a little song that is at the end of the Tree Schoolers, which is part of the Signing Time family of things. And at the end of every episode, it's, now share it with a friend. Share it with a friend. I won't sing it to you, but it's a great little ditty that it's like, yeah, absolutely. That's the last thing to do, is go share what you just learned with someone. It locks it into your mind. So even if you're an atheist and you're like, this preacher, I tell you what, this idea, let me at least think through this again with somebody else. And you can pick your other atheist friend. That's fine with me. But share it. Walk through those texts. Wrestle with the question, who is Jesus? But once again, I want to remind you that we have two stories now in asking the question, who is Jesus? And does he care? And can he help me? In answering those questions, Jesus calmed the storm which no one was able to do. And he transformed the life that no one could subdue. So who is he? What kind of a man can speak to the wind and the waves and they obey? What kind of a man can cast out the demons in your life and bring order out of chaos? Who is he? Who is he? Does he care? And can he help? I believe he can. And I believe he does. Now the decision is yours. So go share it with a friend.